Welcome back to the Almost Lovers Club. I'm your host, Ashley. This is the place where we talk about the connections that arrive unexpectedly, the ones that don't fit neatly into our lives, but linger anyway, the conversations that happen in liminal spaces, late nights, chance meetings, and sometimes 30,000 feet in the air. Tonight's story is about timing, about restraint, about a love that never even got the chance to become a story, yet somehow feels complete and unfinished at all once. Our guest is calling in from Washington, D.C. Her name is Susie. Susie, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ashley. I've replayed this story in my head more times than I can count. It still feels unreal when I say it out loud.
That's usually how we know it mattered. Tell us about Kwame.
Okay. So this was about 2 years ago. I was on a flight from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles, February, Valentine's week. I was flying out to surprise my boyfriend at the time, Tom. I was in what I thought at the time a very solid relationship. I thought I was in love.
And you sat next to a stranger.
Yes, I did. He had the window seat, and I had the middle seat. The flight had been delayed for, over 2 hours because of bad weather. It was snowing badly. When I finally boarded, I was in no mood to talk or anything. I remember sitting down and noticing the book he was reading, Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela. I'm not a person that, starts conversations with strangers, ever. But something about that book, I don't know, it felt intentional. So I said, that's one of my favorite autobiographies. And that was it. Pretty much that was it. He smiled and said, then you understand patience, true patience. We needed that today. It's funny whenever I think back on that moment. Yes, there was Tom, top of mind, of course, but I remember thinking, that's a striking voice. His name was Kwame. What was he like? Calm, grounded, present. What I can say he was like is based on how he felt to me, He felt like the kind of man who listens without waiting for his turn to speak. It goes back to the true patience thing, I guess. We talked the entire flight. Not about him, about me. My relationship, my doubts, my patterns. I told him I was flying to spend Valentine's Day with my boyfriend, and he didn't flinch. He just nodded, respectful. What did he say that stayed with you? So many little things. His level-headedness and maturity stood out. He talked about long-distance relationships, how consistency matters more than grand gestures. He said, I'll give you the advice I give my sisters. Little things matter to men, too. By that I mean pay for the little things, coffees, groceries for one meal, snacks. That's where care shows up. He said, always bring snacks when you stay over, and perhaps a drink if the occasion calls for it. It tells someone you're thinking ahead. And then he said something that stopped me cold. He said, be less materialistic. Not because you'll ever date poor, but because love doesn't survive being measured. No one had ever spoken to me like that. Why do you think it hit so deeply? His voice. I'm joking. I think it was because I've always been told I don't have to try, that I'm pretty, that men will come. But no one ever taught me how to keep a good man, how to nurture something real. Kwame did, without trying to. And then the turbulence. Yes, flying East Coast to West Coast in February is dramatic. The plane started shaking hard. People gasped. Someone cried. I reached for Kwame's hand instinctively. He let me like he had felt nothing. But when the next jolt came, he took my right hand into his big left hand. At one point, I had his hand on my lap, almost pulling at him. What did that moment feel like? The experience was scary and in a way, so were my feelings. It was like something opened in me, something unfamiliar, almost ancient. It wasn't sexual, it wasn't romantic in a way I knew how to label. It felt like recognition.
Did either of you say anything?
No. We just held hands until the plane steadied, and then, like we both understood, we let go.
What happened when the flight landed?
He asked for my number, and I froze. I was in a relationship. And I was prideful. I didn't break rules like that. So instead, I asked for his.
Did you remember it? Did you use it?
No. That's the tragedy of it. I thought I'd remember forever. I even said that's an easy number to remember as he was saying it out loud. I repeated it back to him and told him I didn't need to type it on my phone. I trusted my memory a little too much, too. And you went on to Valentine's Day. I did. And I had a great time in LA, too, on that visit. The kicker is, less than a month later, Tom cheated on me. The irony still hurts. Did you think of Kwame then? Immediately. But it's not that I hadn't thought about him again since then. I thought about him on my flight back to D.C. from my Valentine's Day trip. When I broke up with Tom, it felt like life was saying, you felt the difference, you just didn't listen. Since then, I've dated, I've met great men, but none of them feel like that flight.
What do you know about Kwame?
His name, that he's wise, handsome, gentle, that he reads Mandela on airplanes, that he taught me how love shows up quietly. And as bizarre as it might sound, I know that I love him.
That's a strong word.
I know, but it feels true. I don't love a fantasy. I love how I felt around him. How safe, how open, how honest. Do you want to find him? Yes. Not to force a story, but to see if one exists. To talk, to sit across from him, to ask his last name. You know, you never know with people. He could be married, a terrible boyfriend to his current girlfriend. You really never know. But I've loved to know who he is and how we would be with me. And if you never do, then I'll still be grateful, because for a few hours I met a man who showed me what was possible.
Sometimes that's the gift, right?
I just wish I'd been brave enough to receive more.
To everyone listening, some loves don't come with anniversaries or photographs. They come as conversations, as advice, as hands held during turbulence. And sometimes, the person who changes you most never even learns your last name. Megan, thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for the platform. We really hope it happens for you, and you get to reconnect with Kwame. Well, this has been the Almost Lovers Club. I'm Ashley, and tonight remember, timing may decide the ending, but connection decides what stays with us forever.